Hello, welcome back to the channel, and by request today's video is about my experiences flying goshawks. First off, excuse my scruffy clothes, it's all about maintenance again today. Now this video was sort of by request of one of our viewers, and it's about my experiences flying goshawks. Now what can I tell you about goshawks? Goshawks can be, compared to many hunting falconry birds of prey, quite frustrating. They can be a little bit irritating if you kind of like calm and quiet and relax. They can, if you don't really know what you're doing, I guess, break feathers quite easily, most of which can really be avoided. But I suppose I could find some more negatives, but what they actually are is one of the most blisteringly exciting falconry birds that will ever leave your fist in pursuit of game. They make my jaw drop every time I see one leave the glove when I haven't flown one for a while, and I haven't flown a goshawk for hunting now, I'm going to say at least about 5 years actually, about 5 years. The last goshawk I flew was just the best goshawk I've ever seen, and I am biased, but he really was superb. So since then, in this 5-year period, the goshawks I've seen fly are friends' goshawks, and when I first see one start its pursuit and leave the glove from a complete standing start, my jaw still hits the ground, because when you're flying harrisawks, red tails, golden eagles, as they leave the glove, they just don't seem to be, and they're not as fast, and that kind of 0 to 60. That is the thrill of a goshawk, is the standing start 0 to 60 kind of speed. It is a mind-blowing blur that your brain can't comprehend. And then if you want to take that up a real notch, first off, once you've got your young goshawk hunting well, successful and fit, you then start making the slips massively in weight of its quarry. You don't think I'm going to try and catch what I can. You think I'm going to set this slip up and make it so I think my goshawk will just about have a chance of making a kill. And it's magnificent falconry. If you are one of these people that thinks falconry is standing on top of a rabbit warren with your goshawk ferreting and catching 3 or 4 rabbits in succession as they make it 20 yards from the warren, that's a pretty poor aspect of falconry. And if that's your thing and it's not a young hawk, that's up to you. But my goodness, a goshawk offers, and so do others, far more sport than that. For me, it was all about setting up slips so that if we were rabbit hawking, which was the mainstay of my goshawking, I would weigh it thinking the rabbit's likely to run to safety in that direction. I'll stand this far away that I think is probably going to make it home. And the flights of a well-conditioned hawk and its natural game are absolutely phenomenal. And I can tell you now, you cheer the rabbit that makes it to safety as much as you cheer and sort of so pleased that your goshawk has rewarded itself for its hard efforts. Absolutely fantastic. But you can take that up another notch, and that is in tangled woodland hawking. If you can find rabbit warrens that are inside scruffy tangled woodland, where I don't mean open woodland with big mature trees, I'm talking that scruffy copse kind of woodland where you can't even walk in a straight line for 20 yards, you've got to clamber around, clamber between branches over logs. That for me is one of the most exciting aspects of goshawking. Now, I've had my goshawk chase a cock pheasant at the end of the pheasant season, so these pheasants are super fit missiles for, I don't know, I'm going to guess, 200 metres, and take that hawk, not only just miss it on the flight, take it in the air as it slows down slightly after a really long chase. Fantastic. And a lot of goshawkers only specialise now in game birds, and they are the perfect match for sure for the goshawk. And that goshawk needs strength and stamina and speed and self-belief to properly fly down game birds. And those of you that aren't falconers that are watching this, people will say to me, oh yeah, but pheasants are slow, aren't they? They're not slow. They fly in a straight line. It makes them look slow. They're faster than red-tailed hawks, they're faster than harrisawks, and they're faster than most goshawks, unless the goshawks are fit. Pheasants and partridge and ducks are missiles. They look a bit slow because they tend to fly in a straight line. That's okay. I find it a little bit boring. There's going to be a lot of seasoned goshawkers think I'm talking rubbish. For me, if it's flying a long distance after a pheasant and it goes over a hill or out of sight, you're kind of missing a little bit of the point of falconry, and then you're tracking your bird down and finding it. For me, the thrill of goshawking was always woodland, tangled woodland rabbit hawking. To see the phantom of the forest become that living phantom that not seemingly flies around objects, but goes straight through them like a ghost, a living ghost, is breathtaking. Those rabbits bolt, if you're floating them in woodland, they bolt from their holes, and they know in their mental mind's eye exactly where they're heading for. They know exactly where their next point of safety is, and they're not running randomly over the woodland floor, under logs, jumping over logs, squeezing between trees, going in holes in the base of trees even. Those rabbits are running their paths that they run all day, or rather all night long. They know exactly where they're going. The goshawk has no idea where they're going. It has to just give pursuit to catch those rabbits. And to see the phantom of the forest flying flat out and then have to miss a wing beat as it pulls its wings in to go through the fork in a tree branch, to go under a fallen log that's sort of a foot off the ground, scrabble its way under, still at full speed, turn on its side, head locked onto game, eyes locked onto game, but its wings on the vertical plane as it slips between branches, cracking branches off as it taps them with its wings, old dead branches. And then still sometimes be successful in its kill and get its reward, its day's food for its efforts. Maybe you've had 6 or 7 blisteringly exciting slips, even the goshawk panting at the end, not because it's unfit, because of the monumental effort it's had to do, rather than just fly flat out in a straight line. That, to me, in the UK, is the most exciting goshawking I've ever done. I've flown goshawks at game birds. I've had some amazing flights at wild ducks, absolutely amazing. I've had them fly vertical out of a woodland canopy after woodcock, never caught one like that ever. Open warren, sandy sort of soil, rabbit hawking, fantastic long flights, exciting flights, almost back-to-back excitement. I've flown them in fog that I can't see more than 30 metres and just watched the hawk fly out of sight, literally into the fog. I've flown them in snow. I've flown them in that amazing hoarfrost setting where it's a spectacle just to be outside in the British countryside when everything is covered in that beautiful frost. I've flown them up by kind invitation up near Pennygent in the Yorkshire moors and had them flying at rock rabbits. They hardly make any warrens. They live in the cracks in the rocks, and they can seemingly grow wings and fly over sort of 6 foot, 7 foot maybe stone walls, and the rabbits just go up and over, and the hawk just thinks, what the heck happened there? Because they've never flown in that sort of game. But for sure, I think the woodland rabbit hawking for me has been some of my most memorable for sheer excitement. Seeing them fly game birds for me is exceptional. To see, you've got to have a goshawk absolutely full of power and stamina to really fly game birds well. We're not talking catching them as they run out of cover. We're not talking catching them in the brambles at the end when the game bird's put in and the goshawk's paced itself and got there. But to fly down a game bird, gradually overhaul it and take it out of the air, that requires a lot of fitness and a lot of stamina and a lot of self-belief in your goshawk. But let me just tell you about the 3 goshawks I've personally flown. So if you watch our videos, you'll know that I started keeping and training birds of prey from owls when I was a teenager. I very briefly touched on a second-hand imprint red-tailed hawk, and she was incredibly sticky-footed, incredibly loud and vocal, but oddly not what you'd expect from an imprint red-tail, not a backbone in her body. Actually, very exciting bird to fly. But I made a mistake there because I brought something, being young, you want it now, something was second hand. She was a few years old, already trained. I quickly realised long after that for me the pleasure in falconry is actually, 80% is training the birds yourself, because then it's all about, that's the skill, that's you learning, and that's you achieving. So I quickly decided I really need to get my own personal falconry bird, proper falconry bird, and train one myself. Be a falconer from scratch kind of thing. And what did I like? Well, the red tail was nice. I liked the Harris Hawk sitting on my falcon as my only. Well, I had 3 falconry colleagues, not colleagues, acquaintances. In those days, there was no internet, of course, no mobile phones. Harris Hawks were kind of quite nice looking. Read a lot about those, but it was without doubt the 3 Goshawks that sat on the weathering lawn of the only professional falconer I knew, and they were just stunning. And that's the thing about goshawks. Goshawks and I'd say peregrine falcons are 2 of the most stunning birds just sitting still. What looks better on a falconer's fish than a peregrine or a goshawk? They've got the looks to match their ability, and oddly enough, peregrine falcons and goshawks both have a full-on amazing prey drive. Both birds will go hunting even if you were flying them and you never wanted to catch anything. It's just they're just driven to chase and catch and kill their own food for sure. And the goshawks were in their mature adult plumage, like this girl here. So they're absolutely stunning. Whoops, absolutely stunning. And I couldn't get my eyes off them. And then I read a bit more, and I read because books were the way to go, of course. And you know, everything sort of said the goshawk is highly strung, it's hard work, and it needs exercising sort of almost every day of the week if you want it to be really successful, and it needs to be hunting. So whereas a Harris Hawk can fly very well as a pleasure flying bird and never actively hunting on purpose, the goshawk is one of those birds, it just wants to chase stuff. That's what it's about. So if you can't provide lots of land, or rather land absolutely packed full of game where you can achieve slips and success every time you go out, more or less, I wouldn't fly a goshawk. I wouldn't have a goshawk now because the game isn't around. My favourite hawking was rabbit hawking, and rabbit VHD has decimated rabbits, and it's now 2021. They're just coming back. So I couldn't guarantee this. I used to go out often for an hour with my goshawk, and I'd get 6 or 8 slips, catch something, let it feed up, go home. And that's what I loved about goshawking. But I decided I really wanted one, and despite things putting me off, like the books telling me that there's easier birds to fly, maybe in those days a common bird that you wouldn't catch a lot but you'd learn more, I thought, no, I want what I want, you know. So I researched more, and I brought obviously captive bred goshawk from a local guy in Northamptonshire, Ray Muttock. He was one of the few kind of icons that actually was now managing to breed goshawks. This was before the modern imprinting method. These were bred in an aviary, natural pairs, and he agreed to send me one if they hatched and if he had what I wanted, which was a male because I couldn't afford a female. The male I ordered turned out to be a female. I had a female or nothing, and I had to find more money. Nanny Williams, oh, thank goodness for Nanny Williams, the bank of our family for sure. You can borrow it as long as you pay it back, and we always did, of course. So she helped me out with that extra couple of £100, which was an awful lot 30 years ago. And we got a female goshawk. Now this is what they look like in their mature adult plumage after their first year. But to me, as I've got older, like a lot of older falconers actually, I prefer to see a goshawk in its brown, immature plumage. They look nothing like the adults. Softer tones. I actually really like them like that. And this goshawk was a baptism of fire, wasn't it? I'd trained lots of owls. I'd flown and already trained red-tailed hawk. And now I was having to do most of it out of a book and helpful advice from friends. And I did everything completely opposite to how I train the goshawk now, because that's what the books told me to do. And she was very much a T.H. White goshawk, and if you've seen that film, you'll know what I mean. I just made heavy weather of the whole thing. The goshawk kind of saw me 50% as a great person to be around. We're going to go hunting, I'm going to get to fly, I'm going to get my food, and the 50%, oh no, what's he going to subject me to now? So the books I read said, to train a goshawk, you need to carry it on the glove for as many hours a day as you can. You need to let it see everything. It's called manning. Get the bird used to manning all of his things. It's a sexist term, it's an old term. But humaning, you could say. Getting it used to our environment, tractors, cars, people, kids, prams, dogs, horses. The list goes on forever. Carry the bird on the glove for hours a day if you can. So that's what I did. I'd finish shift work, I'd get home at 2 o'clock, have a cup of tea, pick up the goshawk, it'd look at me and get panic-stricken and bait because it knew what I was going to subject it to. And I'd go walking down the quiet country lanes where there'd be cars and buses, and poor thing was terrified, having meltdowns on the glove. I didn't know why you should hood birds of prey and what the hooding was about, and that it was this perfect welfare tool to help you train and man your hawks in a much more relaxed and faster way. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you need to do your research, because hooding birds of prey, and yes, goshawks, can benefit just as well. I just subjected this thing to everything. So every time it saw me, it just thought, oh no, I'm going to be dragged around and forced to be terrified by buses and cars and tractors. So what did I result in? I had a goshawk that if we were in the countryside alone, me, the hawk and my lurcher, Floyd, the bird would be ultra responsive. She would fly back to me when I couldn't hardly see her in the distance. She would chase partridge for hundreds and hundreds of metres. She'd miss them because they'd always put into cover in the edge of a golf course that was near the land I flew on, and I hadn't got permission on. She'd sit and watch for a while. I couldn't be bothered to walk that far. I'd whistle her, she'd catch her breath, and she'd come all the way back to the glow. She'd chase squirrels, bad news for most hawks for sure with their bite, but she'd chase squirrels. She'd end up high in a tree, she'd come straight back. Floyd had put up a pheasant, her and the dog would set off in pursuit. They got on just fine. One person, one dog, one horse, if it appeared on the horizon as a dot while we were out hunting, that hawk would take stand in a tree and it would not move until that strange object, that strange person, horse or dog, had vanished from her sight. She would not move because she was subjected to these things in such a terrible way, being dragged around on my glove all the time at the beginning of her manning, that she just thought, no way. I'm not coming anywhere near that. I'm safe up here and I'm staying up here. And I would always, with that bird, have a small rabbit or something, or a pigeon or anything in my pocket as a way of luring her down in those days if I had to, because she wouldn't budge. My manning had been a disaster despite following the books and thinking I was really putting the time in. This bird flew 6 days a week for 6 months of the year. Very few falconers achieve that nowadays. She was so fit. We caught very little, not because of her, because of my inexperience really. So, fantastic bird. I flew her for several seasons, and she was then via a UK falconer bought and sent off to America, because CITES regulations were really changing in those days. I think it was the late 90s, maybe mid 90s actually, and falconry clubs like the Washington Falconers Association, which is where she went to, were trying to buy up European goshawks to be part of their breeding programs, feeling that soon they wouldn't be allowed to import wild ones, or import them rather, overseas anytime soon. So we're trying to get a stock of bloodlines into the USA to breed from before these CITES laws changed. So that's where she went. And then I had children, and for a few years I didn't have any falconry. I didn't have time. I really didn't. These strange two-legged things appeared, and they took up a lot of my spare time for sure. And then by pure chance I got back into falconry, and I started with a male harrishawk. Now I don't know, maybe flew him for 4 years. I can't remember now. 4 years. And we emigrated. So my falconry ended again for a couple of years. We returned back to the UK, and my first thought was, I need to get another bird of prey. I've had a 2-year drought, no falconry. Didn't practice falconry in Spain because I didn't know any falconers where we actually lived. Much more au fait with Spanish falconry now, since we live back in the UK, strangely, and I speak better Spanish now we live here than I did when we lived there, oddly enough. But I couldn't wait to get back into falconry. And again, being rushed a bit like when I was a kid again, I scoured the pages of Cajun Avery bird, as it was a thing to do in those days, and someone was selling it. It was just coming into autumn. The falconry season was just about to kick in. I think it was September. Someone was selling a 1-year-old parent-reared male goshawk, just molted, still in the molting aviary, ready to take up again and start. It's sort of retraining and flying. And I got on the phone to the guy. Again, I'm buying a second-hand bird here, whereas I've always knew that really, for me, it's all about first-hand youngsters, training myself. This guy, Max, he was named by us. He came out the aviary, we kitted him up, I got him home, I got him out of the box. This guy's sat in an aviary now, obviously all summer molting. Got him out of the travel box. and got him on the glove, and I thought to myself, this bird is not a parent-reared goshawk, this is an imprint. I've been duped, and this is so common. People tell lies when they want to get rid of stuff, for sure. And I thought, I just don't want an imprint goshawk. For me, I've never wanted to fly any imprint falconry bird. I find it a more pure form when they're parent-reared. I don't like imprint behaviour. I'm not keen on their psychotic behaviour. Look at Wurzel the bald eagle. All imprints are slightly messed up mentally in some ways, even though we work with lots of imprints here at Icarus Falconry. We work with owls, we work with kites, we work with some vultures that are imprinted, and there's reasons for that. It makes them easier to work with, and it's kind on them to work with them as a hand-reared imprint. But for me, the hunting birds in falconry, I've always preferred parent-reared personally. So I got a second-hand imprint, no idea now of anything that I've been told was truthful, and this bird was as often a badly raised imprint goshawk is. It was aggressive, it was noisy, it was hell-bent on killing me, and I really found this out at the end of its formal training, retraining. It was flying to the glove, really responsive, and I thought I'll introduce it to a swung lure. So I always fly my goshawks to the glove, but I always train them well to a lure pad. I don't mean a rabbit lure, just a little lure pad. Always has a massive bit of food on there, and that bit of food to start with is so big, if I use the lure, I'll be packing up for the day. The goshawk will get almost all of its reward on there. That way, it's wedded to the lure pad. It will fly back hundreds and hundreds of metres to the swung lure pad, even when it won't look at the glove. Because the best trained goshawk in the world will find it difficult to return to the glove if it's in a tree and it believes it's got game pinned below it. It wants you to flush the game. If it's the other side of a river or a canal, the best will in the world, you're not going to get over there to flush that game. So you're stuck. It's looking at the glove, knows there's big game below it. Wants to kill. It's driven to kill, like a greyhound is driven to chase. That's its nature. The lure pad, you're offering it, not the glove, you're offering it this kind of pretend game on a string, and it knows it gets a big reward, and it works like magic as long as you never shortchange it on that food. As the food gets smaller, or you hide the lure, or you don't put any food on the lure, you've lost your insurance policy there and then, absolutely. So, introduced the lure before we flew him free. He got the lure, had the food. I looked round, bird's over there on the lure, get a pickup piece ready to pick him up off the lure, look back, I'm wearing a goshawk on my face. Imprint behaviour for sure. Screaming, attacking me because I'm near it and it's killed. And that bird started off as a nightmare. It caught a pheasant, we're only talking now maybe October, it caught a pheasant on its first flight of its first day out. Hen pheasant rose, took it on the rise. I thought, that's pretty good. I go running over to help, and I was probably, I don't know, 10 yards away, maybe less, from the hawk on its prize. He let the pheasant fly away so he could fly through the air and attach himself to my face. He didn't this time. He only did it once. I was ready this time. Hellbent, let his game go so he could defend what he'd caught by attacking me. He didn't want me anywhere near him in his kill. And this went on for 4 or 5 times. We caught rabbits, and as I approached him, he'd let them go and run off so he could fly flat out at my face and try and kill me because I dared to come near him and his food. I don't know how this bird was trained in its first season, but I presume things were pretty sloppy and went pretty wrong. Our saving grace, believe it or not, he caught a rabbit in a ditch stream. The rabbit's underwater, the goshawk's up to here in the stream, locked on. I ran up, I think he was so flustered of what was going on, got my hand on the rabbit, dragged him up onto the bank. There's an owl out there, opened up the rabbit, hand fed him the juicy bits of his kill. So, as I do with all my falconry bird, I'd instantly subdued, or rather killed the quarry, dispatched the game, and opened up the kill for him. It takes a hawk quite a long time to break into its prize. They've got fur, feathers, and a tough skin. By helping them, you're helping them not only subdue a big animal that they're having to fight with if it was in the wild, you're instantly dispatching the game, and then you're helping them break in and feed. And from that moment on, Max realised, hang on, maybe this guy doesn't want to eat my food after all. Everything got a lot easier when Dave came and helped me. And that was it. The spell was there, or the spell was broken, if you like, and we had an amazing working relationship. And of course, the way I've always flown goshawks is when they catch something, I feed them. Only when I've really got a good relationship with the bird's super fit and at least had a season do I do more than one kill. But most of the time it's a one kill outing. That's the beauty of Goshawks. You might get a few stunning flights, you can go home. Everyone's happy. You've had excitement. You can get on with your work. And the guy's had a feed up. He's caught his own dinner, which is surely the best bit about falconry. And that went really, really well. Max went because another goshawk arrived in my mews. Now, he didn't arrive on purpose. Absolutely not. But I'll tell you how Max left. A guy had a goshawk. It wasn't a friend of mine, an acquaintance of a friend. And he had an incident where his goshawk died. And the guy was actually a very good falconer. But like a lot of us, he was in no position to afford to buy himself another goshawk. He couldn't afford another one. He'd invested all his money and time, and his goshawk had died. And I actually said, because another goshawk had come into my mews, I didn't want to fly two goshawks. Fly two falconry birds goes back to that adage, isn't it? You know, a bird on the fist is worth two in the bush. Put all your time into one falconry bird, you're going to have an outstanding bird. Split it between two, they're both losing out. So I gave him this goshawk, Max, which I knew was going to a great home, and made this guy, you know, incredibly lucky man, didn't he? He had a second chance at something, but he was a great guy, and a really good guy, and a really good falconer. So I was pleased that Max was going there. And I'll tell you why Max went, and what arrived next. My third and final personal goshawk. Eric came to me, because he was a large male Finnish goshawk, parent breed of course, that was owed to my good friend Mike Hewlett by his breeder friend Bill. It was a partnership, and he was owed one of the young back from this breeding partnership. And so Mike had it, and really was probably going to sell it on as part of the breeding project or train it. He wasn't sure, but he was in Florida with his family at the time when this bird had to leave the parents. Now, if you don't know, goshawks, you've got to take them away mostly from the breeding aviary at about 9 or 10 weeks. They're completely fully grown, completely fully feathered, and then they start giving their parents in an enclosed space hell of a hard time. The breeders don't want them damaging each other in there, no way. So I went all the way down to Essex, picked this bird up for Mike, and said I'll do the initial training and manning for 3 weeks while he's away. Day one of training, which was just manning, getting this bird feeding on the glove and hooding. I just thought, this bird's special. And my goodness. By the end of a week, he was with me at a falconry display, sitting on a high raptor post in front of an audience all day long, sitting on one leg, watching the world go by. If you know goshawks, you know most of them would be panic-stricken by this. But the way he was trained, I'd learned so much. My training had changed from really textbook kind of robotic style to really, this was the real start of me getting into the birds' minds and how they thought and how they ticked individually, and training them, using the hood as an important tool, as a way of really not only speeding up the manning process, but making these birds really, really bomb-proof and relaxed. This guy, his perfect weight was £1.12.5 He would chase anything that moved anywhere for any distance at that weight. At £2, believe it or not, this guy was super responsive to the glove at £2. He would chase his wedded quarry, which was rabbits, absolutely like a ballistic missile at £2 in weight. But at that weight, he'd be very much like, oh, pheasants, I'm not chasing them, they're well fast. Ducks, oh, no way, I'll wait for a rabbit. But at £1.12.5, £1.13.5, this goshawk was silent, absolutely the most well-manned, bomb-proof goshawk you'll ever meet. It would fly to anyone's glove. Eric would fly from any distance, from any tree, instantly. And going back to my canal thing, he would come to the lure pad no matter what. And twice I had to get him back from chasing game across the other side of rivers using the lure. A perfect goshawk. Beautiful, big, uber fit, dynamite to fly, and super chilled out. He's put me off getting another goshawk. I flew him for several seasons. He went to a breeding program and got killed by the female. So that's what happened to him. But to me, he was so good, and I put so much time into manning this bird and so much time hunting him 5 or 6 days a week. My life as it is now, I don't think I could replicate that with another goshawk. So it's kind of like, you know, when you have something so good, it's almost like you've climbed that mountain. It will be a long time before I fly another goshawk, because I don't think I could do one that justice. So if you put the time in, you really understand the birds, you can have a goshawk that doesn't need a tail guard. It doesn't break its feathers on kills. It isn't noisy. It isn't skittish and manic. And it isn't annoying to be around. But do I think a goshawk's a beginner's bird? Yes, I do. If you're the genuine beginner in falconry, the guy that's done all the research, put years in maybe before you've even started with your own bird, a goshawk does make a beginner's bird for those that really, really, really want it. Does it make a beginner's bird or the next step bird for the sort of the dabbler, the guy that's flying at weekends? It's a hobby, not a way of life. No, don't get a goshawk. It'll drive you mad in that context. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe.